Hi everyone! So today I am going to do a little mini review on this foundation that I just got in the mail. This is the Estee Lauder Futurist Hydra Rescue Moisturizing Makeup with SPF 45. The reason why I got this was because recently I've been having very dry skin and it's not overall dry. It's just like mostly at certain areas like around the mouth, the nose, and sometimes on the eyelids and certain spots around the face. So I saw this online and I saw some reviews on it that saying that it's really good for dry skin. So I just got this and I wanted to try. Without further ado, let's get into the review. So I got this in the shade 1 and 2 Ecru. Yeah, it's actually like a neutral shade. I've actually swatched this already and it comes off actually a bit more pink. I wanted to get the 1W2 Sand. Is it 1W2 Sand? Something like that. But I read and watched some reviews. People were saying that it's a little bit dark, and for Estee Lauder's shade, especially for this foundation, they were saying that it was a bit weird and it came out darker and it's not as described on the website. Let me read the product details. So it is infused with Estee Lauder's skincare breathable skin loving makeup with 12-hour radiant glow. It is formulated with iron charged water complex, probiotic technology, and chia seed extract. So that should hopefully help with all the dry spots and basically hydrating the skin at the same time. And I like that it has SPF 45 and it's a broad spectrum UVA UVB protection. So I usually like to wear foundations that are more natural and more lightweight than the more mattifying, heavier, flawless looking makeup. And this one only comes in 20 shades. Buildable, medium to full coverage, lightweight, flawless, radiant finish. So after all that, let's get into the application of this foundation. I'm really excited to try this on. But like, I know the shade it's not exactly matching, but I've been struggling to always get my right shade. But maybe I should have just gone with the 1W2 Sand, even if it was a bit too dark. At least the undertone would be right. But I feel like sometimes, like with lighter shades or with undertones that may be a bit too peach for me, it's easier to correct and cover up and fix it with bronzer and stuff like that. Whereas if it's too dark for me, it's harder for me to fix that. So it has a pump and a tube. I like this kind of packaging actually. I know a lot of people don't really like it, but I like this because it's easier to carry around and the pump keeps my fingers clean. So this is like a half pump. You can actually see that the color is a little bit more pink than actually neutral. But like I said, we can make it work because most of my shades are not the actual shade. So I'll do half of my face with a sponge, my e.l.f. sponge, and then the other half I would be using a brush. So let's use the sponge. So I'll just dip a bit here and then blot it out. The coverage is pretty light to medium. Obviously we have to put a bit more. And it feels really light. It doesn't feel heavy at all. And it's quite easy to apply. So I've just applied like maybe half to 3/4 of a pump, and it's really easy to apply, like I said, and it goes on so smoothly. And I love that I really don't feel anything on my face, and it dries down. I would say it's still a little bit tacky, but it's like pretty much dried. Like it's not sticky at all. And I like how that even though I didn't put a lot of the product, it actually helped to cover the pores already on my cheek area and my nose, and it kind of gives me a more like flawless finish, and it does look a little bit radiant on my face. But obviously it's a light medium coverage to me, even though they say it's a medium buildable medium coverage. So to check, we have this little pimple here that has been around for a while now, and it's still obvious here. It's not covered up at all. So obviously this is not a full coverage kind of foundation. It's more like a sheer light medium coverage. Maybe if you build it up, it might be able to cover it a little bit more. So let's see if I can actually use a brush to cover that pimple up. So with a brush, it does help to cover up the pimple better. You can't actually see the redness anymore. Maybe you can see it slightly peeking through, but it's actually pretty covered up. So yeah, it is buildable, and it doesn't look cakey when I build it up to cover up that little pimple there. Okay, not little, it was quite big. That pimple there. So overall quite good. Let's try it with the brush now. So I'm just gonna start from the middle and go out. I usually prefer to use a sponge because it gives a nicer, more seamless application and gets a more like skin-like finish most of the time, because sometimes for brushes you can see the brush strokes, the streaks from the brush strokes. You can see from the brush it looks a bit more fuller coverage in that sense, because I guess with a sponge, when you're pressing it into the skin, it kind of lifts a little bit of the product, or it doesn't like make it too thick. So the brush side looks a little bit thicker than the sponge side, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. I feel it's less radiant, but still radiant, but less radiant than this side, and because of the brush, it actually will irritate the dry spots, so you can actually see the dry spots more. Whereas on this side where I have dry spots, the sponge, because you're stippling it or you're pouncing it on your face, you don't really irritate and move around the dry skin as much. So it helps to actually keep that area less obvious with the dry skin. So I'll bring you closer so you can see there's this dry spot here that doesn't really look as obvious as the dry spots over here on this side of my face. So you can see that, with the brush it actually like moves it around, so that's why you can see it. But I feel like even though my dry spots are actually quite bad, this foundation does help to hydrate my skin, and like it doesn't accentuate the dry spots as much as most foundations usually do. So I really like it so far, but obviously we have to do a wear test to see how long and what it does after a while. Alright, so right now I will check back in an hour's time to show if there's any difference, or maybe in a few hours time, depending, after I eat and stuff like that. So I'll see you later. Hi, it has been 2 hours since I last checked in, and I have eaten some food, and it was a soupy spicy noodle. And you can see that over here I think the dry spots have came out and like peeked through. Not really peeked, but it just really came out, and the redness has come off a bit here. So that means like I guess the product has come out a little bit here, because I think of the spicy soup and I was sweating a little bit, so it doesn't stay on the face as well, but I didn't set it with any spray or any powder, so I think it's actually okay. So you can see that it's pretty sheer to light coverage, because I only did like a thin layer, one thin layer. So and here the little bit of dryness. So this was the sponge side and this was the brush side. I still feel like the sponge side was slightly better. Even though it was a sheer light coverage, I like that it covered the pores. So I will check back with you again later. Hi, so we're back. It's about 4 hours since I first put on the makeup, and 2 hours since I did the checkup after I ate some food. So I think it's about the same. It hasn't really changed much other than the, you know, the areas that I mentioned, like here and here where the dry spots are really showing more. I think obviously because after I ate and I wiped my mouth and I was sweating a little bit on the upper lip, so some of the product came off over here. I feel overall that it is quite good because it's almost like a tinted moisturizer, but slightly better, maybe a level up. The fact that I didn't really feel anything when when I was wearing it. I forgot that I was actually wearing makeup. Is really good for me because I really prefer light makeup, especially for everyday use. And it does help blur out the pores and like the, you know, my nose area, and it just gives the face a little bit more of an even look, a even skin tone. I wouldn't say that it's very radiant, like, you know, it's not like glowy, shiny. It's just fresh, like your face looks more fresh as compared to wearing a matte kind of foundation or something that's really thick. Yeah, so yeah, this is definitely better, and it does give you a little bit of a coverage, but not a lot, and it does help to cover up a little bit of the redness from my dry patch and the pimple over here, but it has come off a little bit, but I think it's still okay. So to end this mini review, I would say that this Estee Lauder moisturizing makeup is actually not bad. It wears really well, and my skin is usually a normal to combo oily skin, but during this winter months it's really dry, so this one really helps with helping to keep the moisture there, or like keep it more hydrated than the other stuff that I've been using. Like usually I would use the NARS Radiant Tinted Moisturizer, but I feel that one is not as hydrating as this one, and obviously it does show all the dry spots. This one is slightly better, but of course it's more expensive, so maybe you want to think about whether you want to spend that much. Anyway, thank you for watching this little mini review, and I hope you like it and it was helpful to you, and I'll see you in my next video.